the Oilers taking on the San Jose Sharks. Oilers, healthiest lineup they've had in a long time this season. Nugent Hopkins is back. Brassard and Kulak will make their debuts tonight. But hey, it's time to go racing in the CanTorque Race Report, brought to you by CanTorque. There are a few tools who listen to the show, but none of them are as built as well as the ones from CanTorque. Check out all their tools at cantorque.com. Colin Livingston joins us. And Colin, I've been waiting for this, man. I'm telling you that, I'll be honest, that was one of the more exciting F1 races I can recall. Like in laps 17 and 18, when you had Leclerc and Max going back and forth and passing each other, like that was I loved it. It
was pretty awesome, wasn't it?
Oh, it was great.
Well, and that's what this new body style was supposed to promote, was the ability for these cars to follow closer. Not necessarily, it sounds like it's not easier to pass, but it's definitely, it was definitely easier for the cars to stay closer to each other, which led to a lot of passes. I mean, good for you actually citing the lap number 17 and 18. That's pretty impressive, Gregor.
Dude, I was watching close, man. I take notes when, but that, like, honestly, like I rewatched that sequence just because I couldn't recall the time that you seen, like he passed him and then here he comes again. He passed, like, it was awesome. Like to me, that just makes it more entertaining, because if you have the same guys leading all the race, and yeah, I know there's no, I don't need crashes, but passes are just as, well, to me, they're more exciting than crashes, because now you have the opportunity to, to see the guy, if they can rebound and come back at him.
Yeah. And what was awesome was that it wasn't just up front, they're on the start, even when things, once they started to shake out, watching, Lewis Hamilton racing Kevin Magnussen, like that's a sentence that if you were offered $10,000 a year ago, nobody would have thought was possible outside of a video game. And those two had a really good battle. And then further back, there were more battles. And, Valtteri Bottas in what was one of the worst cars on the grid last year, manages a seventh place finish, pardon me. There was so many great things that happened out of that race. I mean, F1, it's going to take a bit of time for these teams to really figure out the performance and the balance of their cars. I mean, Mercedes, while Lewis Hamilton, racked up a third place finish, they were at best the fifth place car, and maybe even worse than that. Red Bull obviously has their issues. There was some fuel management stuff, and they had a power unit issue on the car of Pierre Gasly, not technically a Red Bull car, but under their junior team. There was just so much going on. I mean, we didn't even talk about it last week, but Sebastian Vettel knocked out with COVID. So Nico Hülkenberg, who had never been in the car, never really got to do any testing. His first session in the car was free practice one, and put on a great show. So seeing Hülkenberg back, seeing Magnussen, who's going to run that full season. I mean, the race had a lot of everything for sure.
It looked like Mercedes was a little sluggish on their pit stops. What's the issue there?
Well, I'm a big fan of the Mercedes debrief. So they on Tuesday or Wednesday after the race, their like senior bosses will do essentially a Q&A where fans will submit questions through their social media, and they'll answer, and they'll tell people what happened, not in exact detail. They're not giving away proprietary information, but they'll tell people what's going on. And what they were talking about is the fact that this year's car with the new wheel is a standard piece. It's not something that the teams make where they were able to kind of customize the wheels to what they thought that they should be. And they're a lot heavier. So the teams are really struggling with mounting the wheels on the backside, on the hub, on the car side are like some male type pins, and on the wheel are the female receivers. To get the wheel on, it's not just a matter of sliding the thing on, but you actually have to orient it. It's not too big of a deal, but with the additional weight, it's taking the teams, specifically Mercedes seems to be one of the worst teams on the grid right now for their pit stops. I mean, they were running with Lewis's car specifically, not with Russell's car for some reason, but they were up to 5-second pit stops, which, you know, in the world of IndyCar or NASCAR doesn't sound too bad. But, you know, if you're not really in the mid 2-second bracket, you're gonna have an issue at some point, especially if you're in contention for a win. I know that they'll, you know, everyone's going to sort through these gremlins as they go, but yeah, Mercedes is definitely on their heels right now.
Now, the finish to online right away, and I always like people to have a sense of humor. They're calling him Dead Bull because, you know, both of their cars died out in the like it was crazy to see. Like you could hear in Max's voice. Now I know he's always a little upset, and I get it. It's probably a pretty high intense situation you're in, but his car dies, and then really Perez at the same time, and that's huge for the constructor points. The individual one, sure, but the constructor points more than anything, Colin. Like that's a pretty big hole to have to try to dig out of.
Yeah, again, the Constructors Championship is where the money is. That's where the teams get paid. So if you win that, your season is a success. I mean, you know, and that's what Mercedes' saving grace was last year when the championship was, you know, in Hamilton's grasp and went away, was the fact that they still got paid. Yeah, it seems like a fuel pickup issue or something with their fuel system. They're not really going to say what it is, but Max had two issues going on though, that during the final pit stop, something got damaged in their steering system. So he was having just a brutal time trying to steer the car. But when they saw what the fuel management wasn't working, you know, they just retired his car. For Perez, you know, he was still running in third place, you know, which is very respectable. And that's kind of, you know, the high water marker where they're going to expect Perez to finish. Hamilton on his heels, and going into turn one, the car just shut off, like it, not just coasting, but basically locked when he got to the corner and he spun out. You know, it's still going to be interesting to me. It sounds like it's more of a fuel system issue, but when you starve a system like an engine of fuel instantly, you can do damage. And if they're doing any kind of engine damage this early in the season, it's going to be a major problem for them, because the teams are still only allowed 3 engines over the course of a year before they start taking on serious engine penalties. With their Alpha Tauri car of Gasly, that car caught on fire. Like something seriously happened to his car. Now it's all the same power plants, the new, you know, whatever they call them, Red Bull powertrains, that was last year was the Honda engine. So they're going to have, they're definitely going to have to take a look at what that is. And, you know, and even these guys, you know, I'm not the biggest Red Bull fan. I can't hide that, but they're going to figure it out.
Talking with Colin Livingston for the CanTorque Race Report here on the Jason Gregor Show on TSN 1260. You know, you made a note to us about the mix of fuel the guys are using, or the people are using, up from it's up to the ethanol. How does that affect an engine?
Well, you know, the idea is that Formula One is trying to, you know, move in a net zero, you know, carbon model as soon as possible. By adding ethanol, it's less harmful with the exhaust. But from an engine standpoint, you know, last year the teams were running approximately 5%. To up that to 10% is a major change to how, like, what kind of power the engine's going to have, and how they handle that. What was talked about quite a bit was the the amount of fuel that could be overheating, because, you know, this car so far seems to be really sensitive to heat. It seems like, you know, trying to cool it down is a big issue. And the fact that they're starting in the Middle East is going to expose this. But, you know, we might even get back to the olden days of vapor locks and things like that if they don't wrap their head around this new fuel. But, you know, again, there's a lot of really smart people who far smarter than me for sure, that, you know, that know how to handle this. So, you know, most of the teams have a major oil company working with them for all their lubricants and all of their fuel. And you know, I'm sure they'll come up with that quick. But yeah, in the beginning, these are the kinds of things, if you get if you can wrap your head around this stuff early in the season, you're going to be so much further ahead, when the points start getting added up at the end of the year.
Colin Livingston joins us, CanTorque Race Report. I know it's a lot of F1, but it's pretty big and people are talking about it. And there was a few surprises. You know, you had Haas, of course, with Kevin Magnussen making his return to F1. He finished 5th. Valtteri Bottas was 6th in the Alfa Romeo. And anybody who likes Drive to Survive might be pumped, because if Haas is competitive again, that probably means more Gunther Steiner. And he's one of the funnier guys in Drive Driven for Success. He's pretty classic as their engineer and team manager.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, Gunter's awesome. Trying to say this delicately, I saw a post from one of the Sky Sports broadcasters, counting how many times, Gunter dropped the F-bomb once Magnussen crossed the line. Of course he can use it in multiple contexts, but no, the whole, the race was just awesome. And that's what we talked about at the end of the week. Last week was, who did I want to win? And it seems like the fans definitely were able to walk away with a great race. I mean, there was action on track. There wasn't any real collision. There wasn't any carnage. That's the kind of thing that I definitely chalk up as a success.
Colin, quickly, let's get to IndyCar. And we talk about F1 and the new designs has allowed the cars to be closer and make passing. Well, so far in IndyCar, last season, there was a total of 185 passes you have. Yeah. And you sent me a note that there's already been 269 this season. How come? And obviously that makes for more exciting racing, but why so many more passes?
To be fair, that was just at Texas. So to compare last year's Texas race, so Texas is an oval. In the entirety of the Texas race in 2021, yeah, there were 185 passes, but this year by halfway, they were over 269. So what the series did, like, Texas is one of these weird tracks that hosts NASCAR and hosts IndyCar, and that isn't so weird in itself, but NASCAR has relied on this what's called traction compound, where they spray a chemical onto the track towards the high side, this outside groove that we talked about a little bit last week, in the hopes that they can get more, 2 wide, 3 wide racing. The problem is it doesn't work for IndyCar because it's a different tire compound and their tires don't stick to it. Their tires slip on the stuff. So for IndyCar to race at a place like Texas that has this compound down, or Phoenix, where Indy used to race, it is a big issue, because basically you're saying to the teams, here's an entire racetrack, but you can, in the corners, you can only use 25 to 30% of what's there. If you go outside of that, you're going to hit the wall. And the rookies in the race showed that. But aside from that, the series did a great job. They had a special session on Saturday after qualifying where teams were given an extra set of tires. They were able to run around and try and remove, basically lay their rubber down over top of this stuff. And it proved super exciting. I mean, I can be pretty critical of IndyCar, but I'll tell you what, it was an awesome race. Getting to see Jimmy Johnson, finally get to show what he can do as a driver. I mean, Jimmy drove probably as good a race as anybody else on the track. Finishing 6th, he was keeping Scott Dixon behind him for a period of time, which is no easy feat. But and then he called to finish the race with a last corner, last lap teammate pass. So it had everything.
Quickly, Colin, before we go, NASCAR. Now they reconfigured and repaved the Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yep.
And what did you make of that?
I hated it. It was brutal. I'm 2 of the 3 series that we're talking about today cannot say enough good. And NASCAR, the track configuration is fine, but for some reason they chose not to let their drivers race. They went back to a restrictor plate style where these cars were running around in a pack for the entire race, where you've got these cars running bumper to bumper, and in aero packs is like so far from entertaining. Watching the car that was leading the pack was running at 100% throttle. The guys that were behind them could have made a run to pass, but they're saving fuel. They're running around the track at between 40 and 60% throttle, at 40 to 60% throttle, because that's all they need to keep up to the guy. That's not racing. That's waiting for the last lap. And there was so much carnage in the thing, and so many just silly crashes. I don't know what NASCAR's thinking. I don't know if anyone really finds that entertaining. And if you do, I apologize, but it might be entertaining, but it ain't racing.
Yeah, I'm with you. Colin, great stuff, man. We look forward to this weekend. Also, we got a lot of people saying, hey, Red Bull thinks it was just a vapor lock and they've got it figured out. So we'll see if that is indeed the case. But that definitely makes this week's race exciting to watch. And hopefully we have more passing like we saw in the first weekend. Really in IndyCar, too. It was an awesome weekend. Thanks.
You bet. Enjoy the game, man.
Oh, yeah, you bet. We will for sure. That's Colin Livingston in the Racing Report, brought to you by